This computer. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No, that's all right. I'm just push the rewind button. That's fine with me. So, in any event, so we have a new pal. Hopefully, maybe we can do some more things with him as far as either promoting our events or maybe even having him on and Zoom with us. But Jordan Rich has been around BZ for years and years. He's been in radio for around 50 years. And he has a voice, I tell you, I mean, he sent me this little clip of what we did, and it's $1 million voice in my book. Anyway, so he hosts this little segment. It's called the New England Minute. And he goes around and tries to find these, shall we say, quintessentially New England type events to promote. So that could be the wine festival. It could be something like a Brimfield. It could be a play. So I approached him. I had met him not long ago, and I said, hey, could you help us out? We do this thing a few times a year. And, I mentioned Brookline, and being a radio guy, most of those folks, even if it's from the other side of the stage, so to speak, on the other side of the mic, he was more than happy. He's very intrigued. Well, what do you collect and what do you do? How many, I think they're just fascinated that there is still a group of people who are, actively engaged in preserving, discussing, and listening to radio. So he was kind enough to say, we'll put this little snippet together. It's about a minute long. It will be on Saturday, and sometimes they'll play it throughout the day. Sometimes it's only on a couple of times, but I figured, hey, for a minute on WBZ, especially to try to attract some people who may not normally come to an antique radio show, it was certainly worth spending a few minutes with him doing. So it's going to air, I know for sure, at 7:55 a.m. on WBZ. That's AM 1030. And maybe before we leave, I can find this little clip in my file here. We'll play it for you guys. But he was very kind to do it, and it was kind of fun. So he's somebody worth knowing, and I think where we've had Morgan White help us promote some of our events, if Morgan can lend us a little public relations from time to time, that's a good deal. So anytime you get on a 50,000 watt radio station to talk about antique radios, we'll take it. So anyway, if you're around and you like to listen to the radio, you can hear it. It'll be on Saturday morning, and I'll try to dig it up, Tom. Maybe we can play it before we leave tonight, or we get another little break in the action.
That'd be great. Thank you very much for that. Before I start in on NEARfest and MIT, does anyone else have anything they would like to say to the group? We'll have a discussion after I finish. Okay.
I'm good.
I'm sorry?
I am good.
Okay.
Good to go.
Good. Here we go. And Bob, if you would admit people for me.
Yep, just admitted.
Here we are at NEARfest. May I assume that you can see the crowd about to, it's sort of like a Le Mans start. People are running to be the first to buy stuff or sell stuff. Is the picture coming through okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So that's the scene. I'm on the staff there, so I was able to spend the night, but for those who aren't on the staff, they camp down in that field there and park over there, and the gates open exactly at 9 o'clock, and it's a mad rush. As you walk up the road, dealers are set up on the left and right, vendors, and the guy that you see right in the middle happens to be the world's greatest expert on telegraph keys. It's John Casale, and he lives in Troy, New York. And here he is. He's got a couple of very, very high-end receivers for sale there. And he's just sold one to this guy on the right. But his telegraph keys are on display in rather large numbers. And these are fairly common keys. And so he had those up there, and you look at them, it's a key and a sounder on a little board. Most of them were selling for about $25 a piece. But then I spotted this magnificent piece of equipment. And this happens to be a genuine Civil War spy telegraph set. and it was just sitting on his table there. The way this thing works is you take a wire and hook it to, say, this lower left terminal, and you wrap the other end of it around your bayonet and jam the bayonet in the ground. This is if you're a Civil War soldier. And you take a wire from the other terminal and you throw it up over the enemy telegraph line. And since the enemy lines, all of the lines were uninsulated in those days, you didn't need to worry about, just take a rock on the end of the wire, throw it over the wire, and you now had a complete circuit from the enemy wire into that terminal, through these very sensitive coils, and out to ground through the other terminal. And whenever the enemy would send a signal, that little bar that you see in the middle there would flip up and down, making a clicking sound, and you could read their Morse code signals. And if you were good, you could use this tiny little key on the right to send false signals to the enemy. Now, this is known as a Civil War Spy Pocket Telegraph Set. They sell for usually about $3,000 to $4,000. And John had this one up for a lot less than that. And I immediately grabbed it up with a great smile on my face. So I'll show it to you when I finish sharing here, but it's a really unusual and lovely little piece to find, especially at a flea market in New Hampshire. And by the way, this flea market is held in the Deerfield Fairgrounds in Deerfield, New Hampshire, fairly close to Manchester and our NEARfest shows. So it isn't a very difficult thing to get to. I'm primarily focusing on radios that I thought you might be interested in. And so here's a typical table with a bunch of radios that you might possibly recognize. I'm not good on the names of all of these, but if you see something that you want to comment on or you want me to enlarge, just let me know. I don't recognize the one on the right. I can see that the one on the left toward us is an RCA, and it looks like the one in back there, I can't tell. Any comments on those guys? Okay, here's a nice Zenith transoceanic for sale. They generally were sold in the $100 range, depending on the model. And here's an amplifier, a Bogan amplifier, very dear to my heart. I had a couple of these over the years. It's a good, solid amplifier, all tube type, of course. And I just loved them. They had extraordinarily good sound. You can see the name down here, Bogan, on the right. I had to be sure what I was looking at. And that's a really nice amplifier to see. Sorry, I just kicked myself out of screen share. Let me see if I can get back in here. All right. And we'll go to the next radio. Okay, is that showing up okay, Bob?
Yeah, you have to go back in display mode though. You're just showing the folder.
Oh, okay. Let's see then. I have to go back and stop screen share, and I have to start screen share, and I have to go here. How's that?
There you go.
Okay.
You want to, if you can, go into full screen mode, but
yeah,
that'll do.
I will. I'm just going to enlarge this so we can see the name on it. It's not something that I recognized. It's a Regeniformer, Browning Drake Regeniformer. And I imagine somebody probably would recognize that. The inside of it is particularly very clean. And this is on Roger's table. Roger had a great big setup here. These are a lot of things that he brings to our NEARfest shows as well. But this was a particularly nice looking radio. Here are some other things on his table, Hallicrafters, a couple of these little sets in the foreground, an RCA, I guess it is, in back. And just moving along his table, he had a lot of interesting stuff. tape recorder, and he also had a free box out in honor of the NEVEC free cable.
Yes.
This stuff was available. You could just reach down and pick it up. Very nice of Roger to bring this stuff. Nice, another Zenith, not the one I showed before, and a couple of other very nice radios here on the left, and a little, looks like maybe a piece of test gear on the far left there. And I looked at this little thing. It looked like a lady's hat box, but I opened it up, and sure enough, it was a symphonic 75. Now, must be a 45 RPM phonograph, or maybe
Yes.
adjustable speed, because you can see the adapter there.
Adapter, yep.
Yeah.
I bet you one of those knobs is the speed control. So that looks like a probably do your 33 1/3 and your 45s, huh?
Maybe.
Or maybe 78s.
78 would be my guess, looking at the thing.
It's a little older, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. The tone arm looks like it has a little flip over thingy here,
Yes.
which would argue for 78, because they used a bigger needle on a 78, I think, if I remember correctly. And along with that, he had just boxes and boxes full of components, just what you need for fixing things. The $1 tube containers were all over the place. You walk along, you look into these things, and there were some really nice tubes there for $1. I don't know what these things are. I looked at those fairly carefully, and I couldn't recognize them. Maybe they're ballast tubes, or I really don't know. But anyway, fun to look at. Here's a what is it, a Grundig, I think, if I'm correct, down on
yes, that is one of their repro models that they produced, not to be confused with the real thing, but they play pretty well. So
did they
Grundig
classic. Did they Grundig make it, or did someone else rip it off?
Well, I believe on the back, because I've seen a few of those at different shows, it does say Grundig, but I believe that was at the sort of tail end of when they were producing things before they got gobbled up by Eton out on the West Coast. So I believe that is a made in China radio, but they look pretty attractive, and they sound halfway decent. So it's a wood case. You know, it is what it is, much like some of those Crossley and GE reproduction radios with the cassette players on the side that we saw in the 80s. You know, same concept, but they were sold for a pretty good penny, actually, in their day, brand new.
Yeah, that name is magical. So even if it's Grundig Japan, it probably sells for pretty good money. Okay, and of course, and lots of old Hallicrafters. This is a Super Defiant. Wonderful old radios, bring back lots of memories. Those tuning knobs, I can still feel those things in my hand. Lots of turntables. Tables and tables full of turntables, and of course large numbers of 33 RPM record albums that you see on the bottom there. This little guy on the right, anybody recognize that?
You know, I can't make out what the emblem is on the top there.
It's a AK. It looks like perhaps a 55 would be my guess. I'm not. No, maybe not a 55, but it's definitely Atwater Kent, and I think the speaker is an F4. Yeah, I think I'll go with that.
Okay, is that a matching speaker, or is it another speaker?
As far as I know, that would be matching to that radio.
Ah.
It looks like the paint is halfway decent. Little scratches here and there, but doesn't look too bad.
Okay, and how about this guy? Anybody recognize that one? Looks like it needs a little refinishing.
Yeah, a little. That's the one that needs veneer work. That's that radio. I don't know. I mean, it has that kind of flywheel tuner up the top.
Yeah.
And you know, on the with the little window there for your tuning. And Greg, I'm surprised that's something that might not ring a bell with you. Ever seen something like that
before? It almost looks like it could be a frame from a speaker, or maybe it's an antenna. Not sure.
Yeah, it could be an antenna, I guess.
The mystery set.
Anyway, I'm just trying to show all the variety of stuff. It's really worthwhile going to the show and walking around, especially since you see things that come out of basements that we don't get to see at eBay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the other thing too is where, even from my point of view, I've never been to a NEARfest, but I've talked to Ross, who, goes quite a bit and, is a big apostle of the NEARfest experience. There's a tendency to think amateur radio as opposed to, for the guy who collects consumer sets, there's tons of stuff, and there's a little something for everybody. And as you can see from just the first few slides, if you're just looking for consumer sets, plenty of them. It's not all communication stuff.
Those are some giant capacitors the way it looks.
So that looks like a FADA. Is that right? The
yes, FADA, Fred Dondria. Yep, that's a nice little portable there.
Yeah.
They were down out of New York, and I cannot tell you what the chassis is underneath there.
I think that's an Atwater too.
An Atwater?
Yeah, looks like it.
Got a couple of little speakers over there if you need one for your set.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to sort of entice you guys to come to NEARfest by showing you primarily stuff that I thought might be interesting to you.
Can you give us a weather guarantee? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a problem, but you can do.
Were these photos all on Friday or Saturday?
It starts off on Friday, and Friday is the big day.
Yeah,
Saturday is pretty dead, unfortunately.
I was there on Saturday, and I'm looking at things that I'm pretty sure I didn't see. So
I have never understood why Friday is so much better than Saturday. I always figured people would be out of work on Saturday and be able to come, but maybe they prefer to mow their lawns.
They prefer to play hooky.
Yeah. So that looks like a Zenith chassis on the right out of the console, would it be?
Probably a 37, yeah. It's got the target tuning eye.
Yeah.
Nice little GE AM FM there, not bad. Clean it up a little bit. And
on the left, yeah.
Very presentable, very 50s.
This guy looked pretty good.
Another GE clock radio, yep.
Yeah. Is that thing on top the thing you hit to turn off the alarm?
Yeah, that could be your snooze button, yes.
Okay. And here's a nice little RCA.
Oh, yeah.
That's a 28X, I believe. And those are nice little sets. That's kind of like a console chassis in a tabletop radio. I have the 28X5, which is the only difference is it has 5 push buttons, but there's push-pull in there, and it's a nice set, very sensitive, and I love that sort of very deco numerals, on the dial. That's a sharp looker. I like those.
Is the speaker fairly large on that?
The speaker is a 9-inch ellipticon from RCA, which provides superb sound. Now, the speaker is literally, in this case, as often is the case, sometimes the grills kind of hide a mediocre speaker. It has kind of an elliptical shape, and it is most the size, almost fills that grill, and it's a pretty good size set. It has very nice sound. It's a good player, and it usually has the nice little RCA jack in the back if you'd like to put in a different source, but they're not bad sets at all. Very respectable.
That's great. Thank you. GE set. Sorry about the flash getting in the way there, but I guess it's AM FM, is it? Shortwave.
Shortwave.
Yeah.
Case is very presentable. If it's original, that's in great shape.
Yeah. Looks like someone worked on it a bit. Radiola.
Yeah, that's another 6-tube, made by RCA, not the radiola that we think of, but they made a ton of those sets, and it's kind of has an appealing look to it. But the RCA and those post-war 6-tube chassis for the AC/DC sets, they really had it down pat. They get an awful lot out of it, because sometimes you kind of sniff at a 6-tube AC/DC, but RCA had a good engineering department, and they made some pretty decent sounding sets. So again, I believe you have probably on that one I'm not sure if that's the band switch. They sometimes included tone controls on these. So one of the positions could be for tone on the broadcast band, but a nice set.
Usually the middle knob was for tuning, and I think the right-hand one is tone. First one's off on volume.
Yep.
Kind of unusual to have the middle knob being the tuning knob.
Okay, thank you. Standard 5.
That was an oldie, huh?
Looked to be pretty good. I peeked inside and it was all there. Clarity and volume. What's clarity?
Well, probably about as much. Well, you know, maybe you got more clarity back then with no stray RF than we have now if you had a good aerial. I don't know. Clarity costs $5 extra. If you want the one without the clarity, it's $5 less.
I really am impressed by the designation in the lower right of the word switch.
What type of a switch? Yes,
I'm surprised that the others don't say dial.
Yeah. Could be a doomsday switch for all we know, right?
Yeah, good point, Paul.
So on a set like this, are those 3 dials tuning 3 different tune circuits in the RF stage? Any ideas?
I don't collect stuff that old, to be honest.
I'll say yes to that, Tom, because I've had similar ones. I had a Standardyne, which was also made by Standard. I've gotten rid of that over the years, but I do have other 3 dialers around here that are all TRFs.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Russ.
Yeah.
And here's a beautiful meter. The asking price was $60 on this, and the guy told me he sold it for 10. Sorry, Bob. But it's a neat thing. Imagine having that thing up on the wall, vibrating away. I don't know. Does it have? Yeah, I guess 60 cycles is on the left there.
James G. Biddle, Philadelphia.
And another Zenith. This really turned me on. This is a Collins World War II era transceiver. And it actually has a place for 2 crystals. The transmit crystal is on the left, that little rectangular, the receive crystal on the right, and just all kinds of little tuning adjustments for the receiver. The receiver's here over here on the left, and the transmitter is all on the right. But just a beautiful set. And Collins, of course, made extraordinarily good equipment, even way back then before their heyday. So seeing that little thing made me reach for my wallet, and then I slapped my hand and I said, no, you don't need another one of that. Anyway, let's see if I got to jump out of that and go on to the next one. A Polydyne.
Polydyne. Huh.
Anybody recognize a Polydyne? Well,
I recognize JBL. I don't know what the heck a Polydyne.
That's just a modern speaker on top.
I know.
I didn't move it to look in. I probably should have, but Polydyne. It's a good name. This is a wonderful little receiver made by National for the VHF range. Very, very desirable collectible. There aren't a lot of them around, but it's a great little VHF receiver. And of course, there are a bunch of vintage Citizens Band sets out there. They're always fun to look at, especially the gold microphone. What they call that? They have Golden Eagle.
D104.
Yeah, D104 Golden Eagle, was it?
That's a great emblem on the speaker there, huh? That's
maybe
better than that.
Yeah. Almost makes you want to have a CB radio in your collection. No.
You know, just
a Radiola 3.
I was just reflecting back to, you don't have to go back, Tom, but that little National that you showed 2 slides ago, that what I found intriguing about that is that the dial set is very common, even among their very top end receivers, that dial vernier sort of internal external dial configuration. So I didn't realize it was on some of the smaller receivers.
Yeah, and it has a little tuning chart on the left. So you set the dial to a particular number and the chart will tell you what frequency you're tuned to, or vice versa. So radiola, let's see, missing one tube. Unfortunately, I didn't get the price. There's a couple of beautiful vintage Collins receivers from about when I started out in radio 75A2s in 1950, 53. Very nice sets. And then the biggie on the back of the truck here, this is a complete Collins transmitter and receiver. The Collins receivers on the left. The speaker looks a little odd because you can look right through it and see the truck right through the speaker. Yes. So I suspect it may be missing a diaphragm at least. The stand-up unit on the right is a kilowatt amplifier and power supply, or maybe that's just the power supply and modulator, and the radio on the right in front is the transmitter. Nice setup, a lot of money. This is George, K1ANX, and he gave a talk on spy radios. And in the back, you'll see Adam running the audio equipment. Now, looking a little bit bored, I think.
He was up too late last night.
Yeah, but he did a fabulous job of overseeing the audio for all the speakers. And George has a fabulous collection of spy radio sets. This is a British spy radio in a suitcase from World War II. And he pulled out this beauty, and this is a Japanese spy radio from World War II. Very rare, very lovely. Look inside the thing, it's all still there. So he talked about that. He's really a super pro on spy radios and really worthwhile listening to. The seminars went on all day Friday and all day on Saturday morning, I should say, not afternoon. And this was later in the day, 4 o'clock on Friday, that George was talking. Tubes, if you wanted tubes, you could buy an entire tube caddy for about $50 with all those tubes, or you could pick and choose from some of them. So it's just an ideal place to go stock up on huge numbers of tubes that you may or may not ever use in your life. And here's a very nice looking Atwater Kent set, look complete inside. So there are a lot of radios that might appeal to you guys at these shows. Very nice little heligrafters there in the middle of a couple of ham radio sets. And this is the little Miata convertible that is owned by Mr. Mike. Mr. Mike is W1RC. And he's the guy who put the Deerfield HAMfest back together after it had fallen apart from lack of attention. Wonderful guy. He comes up to a couple of our meetings, but he's the kind of guy you need to meet. He not only resuscitated the Deerfield HAMfest, but he also was responsible for working with the team to resuscitate the MIT HAMfest after the person who'd been running it for 35 years, Steve Finberg, died recently. Here's a nice little Crosley set. Anybody recognize that guy? Maybe I shouldn't have focused on the older sets, but yeah.
There we go. 62T RCA, nice set. Like that waterfall look. And I have one of those. It's a little darker finish. And the veneer is kind of, it's a little bit sensitive. It's kind of thin to begin with, and it kind of overlaps the frame, of the case. So sometimes you see those little pulls and pieces come off down the bottom, but it's got all the knobs, and it's got a really attractive dial in the night, and nice set. You need a long wire antenna. That's about a 1938. Nice looking set.
I might have overexposed that too. It might be a little bit darker in actuality. I don't know.
Nice contrast there between the the off on and the I believe that's a tone control on the right. That's a nice little strip they put in there, kind of offsets the look on the front. Nice piece.
Yeah. Okay, so there we are with NEARfest. I've gone through all the things that I thought would be of interest to you. You can get through the whole show, I would say, if you're really careful, you might do it in 2 hours. If you just zip through it, you could zip through it in an hour and a quarter, something like that. But to really get a chance to look fairly carefully, you want to count on at least 2 hours. Wouldn't you say, Bill, something like that to get through NEARfest? Of course, it depends on your mobility. Bill, how long did it take you? Bill, how long did it take for you to go through NEARfest? I don't know what's happening to your audio. I don't know what happened to your audio, Bill, but it's strange, shall we say. Okay, so I'm going to move on to MIT. The MIT HAMfest is held in a garage, parking garage owned by MIT. And this picture shows Steve Finberg, who is the guy who organized and ran it for 35 years. And he just recently passed away. So in memoriam for Steve, that as you enter the show, there's a picture of Steve. And it's a great show, a lot of stuff going on. And if you're interested, it will be held the public is allowed in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it is this coming Sunday. So I hope to show you enough stuff here so you want to move over to Cambridge and come to the show. Plenty of free parking on the street in Boston. It's Sunday, none of the meters are active, so you can park literally any place you want. Here is a view. People do carry flashlights around with them. When they get there, there are some dark areas, but lots and lots of stuff to look at. If you look down in the boxes, you find speakers and wires and good stuff. I don't recognize this set. It's must be a fairly recent tube type amplifier. Does anybody recognize it? I can't read the instruction books there, but I have seen things like that sort of pawning themselves off as being tube sound, which is very popular with the audio people these days. If you want tools, there are tools spread out on the floor in several locations. And radios, old Hallicrafters radios can be found fairly easily. Lots and lots of audio equipment, as you see here, and speakers and records, but not a lot of old stuff in collections like this. These are pretty much more recent radios, such as these. Every once in a while you find something exciting in there, a Scott or a Macintosh, but most of these people know their prices, and it's sort of like the Pennsylvania show. People know what these things are worth, and they price them appropriately. Here are a couple of plastic radios of various kinds, and there's a console I don't recognize. Anybody recognize that console?
41 Philco.
Okay, Philco.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that kind of thing shows up in the back of a pickup truck. As you might expect, it probably went home in a pickup truck too. Consoles seem to be very hard to move at various shows. There's a little portable set, turntable, various. You get quite a mixture of stuff at this show. There's something that somebody should recognize. Maybe a GE. Is that a GE?
Oh, the last one was a Zenith, the little wooden one, the portable.
That one?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. Okay, I don't know what this is. It has a little round emblem up there.
That is a GE with a Musaphonic speaker.
Ah.
So it looks like it has suffered a little damage to the dial.
And
But not a bad little set for what they were.
It could be that that's a reflection from the flash.
Yep. Yep.
Hard to tell. Denon amp in the back, I think, and a pretty good turntable in front. I don't know what the brand is. There's some moderate indirect sets. Looks like a pretty powerful amplifier in the lower right there. I don't recognize it. Equalizers in back, and moving over to the left a little bit, we have looks like a stereo amp, tube amp of some kind. And
I think the transformer is too small on those.
oh, okay.
Look at that thing. That's got to weigh 20 pounds. I mean, those are beasts.
That's what gives it the oomph.
That's right. That's what makes the neighbors complain.
You got to have the oomph factor. And another view of, this is at the other end of the table, looking back at those amplifiers there. And tube testers and computers right next to each other, as you might expect.
And a picture of the Carpenters. My God, is that records or tapes, or is that just a photograph for me? How did they know I like Karen Carpenter?
Looks like
Look at that shirt, very 70s. I
Yeah.
love it. Beautiful.
So if you look in the back of a van, you're liable to see all sorts of interesting things like these consoles. I don't know whether I don't think they ever came out during the show. I think
you have a Zenith there and maybe a Philco down the left there, Greg.
37, 38 Philco, yeah. I think it's a 41 Zenith.
I would sort of guess that this is probably on its way down to Kutztown, but I don't know. And again, tubes, lots of tubes. Richard has always a lot of tubes at his table, and kids love pawing through the old 33 RPM albums. Nice old phonograph. This one's probably a 78 only, I would guess, but it's hard to tell. It might have an AM radio in it on the right, but for $5, what do you want?
$5, take it away.
The line cord's almost worth that. And then if you want a Gilbert electric eye set, Gilbert made wonderful kits for kids, everywhere from erector sets to believe it or not, an atom smasher. The Gilbert, what was it called? It was an atomic energy lab where you evacuated a glass tube using a pump, and you put a radioactive source on one side, and you could actually see the gamma ray trails through the evacuated tube. Pretty scary stuff. It'd probably be very illegal at this point, but this is, we're talking back in the 50s, and it was very popular in those days. Nice little phonograph in the back there. I was tempted on that one. It just looked cute and like fun. Again, I'm pretty sure it's a 78 that looked like the speaker, right, and a tone arm that picks up the vibrations and feeds them down into the lower speaker, and a turntable on the right, a box of microphones, and a couple of these guys. Are they FM tuners or TV tuners? I can't make out.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe TV.
Yeah.
Can't tell from the numerals.
A table full of public address stuff. Some of those PA amplifiers are pretty well designed.
I think maybe UHF tuners.
Say again?
UHF tuners to add on to your VHF only television sets.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
14 to 83.
Okay. And it looks like a nipper over on the right there on top of that amplifier, but
yes, it does.
Don't know what it is. It looks like just an emblem.
Maybe a plate or like a tray. It could be a promotional item or something, maybe.
Yeah, right. So lots of keyboards and lots and lots of very early test equipment. These are Leeds and Northrop linear bridges for antique wood clamps, and just tables full of early test equipment and variable resistors. Those variable resistors are kind of fun when you're troubleshooting things. You can't burn them out. So you can put that thing in and substitute it and be pretty sure you're not going to burn it out in the process of trying to fix things. More scientific instruments of various kinds, and more. This is a Leyden jar if you happen to want to generate some lightning. This really turned me on. I couldn't resist this. This was a little tiny children's seat and a school desk, and the whole thing was $10, and I just had to have that. It just is. And when you put it together, it looks very, very cute. My wife said, "What are you going to do with it?" So I guess
we're going to find a kid. That's what we're going to do. Put him in the seat.
I showed it to her very proudly. And I guess that means it's going out to the barn with all my other stupid purchases.
She's just not thinking this through clearly, Tom. That is definitely the timeout seat for you.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yes, that would be a good one.
You may have that at Brookline next week
Yeah,
with a for sale sign.
Yeah, right. My wife doesn't want it.
Good as reason as any.
Just beautiful old test equipment, very, very cheap. General radio test equipment here, mostly with an old World War II receiver. And this radio on the left here that has a horizontal dial is kind of interesting. You look at it a little bit, and then you notice the instruction book on it. It turns out it's a Russian radio, radio, R-A-D-I-O in Cyrillic. Premium, I think is what this says. Radio premium, but who knows? Anyway, you could have that for a song. And of course, the old scalers were there in considerable numbers. This is a particularly interesting piece of World War II radio equipment. It is actually a receiver with an extensive number of bands that it covers, but it also has a rotating loop antenna on the top. So it is a direction finding receiver from World War II, a fairly unusual looking one. Here's some more World War II radio equipment, radar screen and receiver on the right. And then it came to knobs. There were a couple of tables, whole tables full of knobs. And you could buy an entire bin of these knobs for about $25, or you could buy them individually for $1 a piece. And there were just tons and tons and tons of knobs. And they're pretty useful to have when you're working on radios. I imagine we all have at least 1,000 knobs in our basement by now, but I always believe you can never have enough knobs if you're working on radios, because there's going to be a radio you just don't have the right knob for. And of course, computers, lots and lots of really good deals on computers. I bought the second one in from the right here for $10, and it turns out to be a Windows 10 Core 2 processor with a reasonable amount of memory and a 250 gig drive. And for $10 and having it work when I got it home, it's pretty amazing. So you can pick up computers that you can just use for dedicated purposes here, as well as versatile normal computing. I don't know quite how people get them that cheap. I think what they do typically is they buy out an entire school system, or the school system throws them out and they're standing in the dumpster ready to catch them as they get thrown into the dumpster. Either way, there's some great bargains on computers, some desktops here. You can buy terabyte hard drives for $20 up here. And if you wanted computer equipment, there was plenty of it. This is kind of an interesting computer. This is an old computer called a Franklin. To the right of it is a tablet. And I bought that tablet for $10, and it's in perfect working condition, an Android 10-inch tablet made by ASUS. I checked it out, and to my amazement, it worked perfectly. So that's sort of a nice way to look at videos or listen to audio or surf the internet in a very convenient form. The computer on the left is a Franklin. And I was looking at this computer, and Adam came along. I said, Adam, did you see this Franklin? He said, yeah. I started laughing. He said, yeah, I saw it. You know the story about Franklin, don't you? He said, with a big laugh. And I said, no, tell me. And he said, well, Franklin copied Apple exactly. And I mean exactly. Every single circuit in an Apple is inside of Franklin. And they sold this thing. And Apple went after them, and they finally went out of business. But they got away with selling quite a few of these things before Apple was able to put them out of business. So I was quite surprised at that, to see a real Apple capable computer here with a different name on it. Nowadays, I think they would not only sue you, but fine you immensely. Lots of stuff, fun stuff to see. Tom shows up with his Enigma setup, of course, and I happen to have a German Enigma on the left, an American version cipher machine on the right, and a Russian cipher machine on the far right. So it sort of covered the ground there. And this is the radio that really turned me on. I saw that thing for $10 and I said, what's that? That looks like something I have to have. And I bought it, and I'll show it to you in a moment. I have it here in back of me, but there were also free tables at MIT, and a lot of good stuff on the free table. So that's what I have to show you about NEARfest and MIT. And what I'd like to do for just a minute is show you, first of all, the Civil War pocket set that I bought. Beautiful little set. You can see that it is very small, fits in your pocket. The only thing about this set is it's missing the cover, and the covers break off typically. It's made of gutta percha, I believe, or maybe hard rubber. And anyways, unusual to find them with an intact cover. But the little telegraph key is really cute there. And that is what a Civil War spy would carry in his pocket to listen into the enemy and send false telegraph messages. Now, if I reach down on the floor here and pull this is the thing I couldn't resist. And this is perhaps the world's first citizen band radio. It has controls, but it has crystals for the various frequencies. And it's really incredibly well built. It has 3 power supplies. It'll work on 110 volts and 6 volts and 12 volts. And it comes apart like this. Let's see if I can. So there it is, and there's the case. The case is so well made, it's amazing. Every one of those things is welded on, and it's a very, very solid device. The guts of the thing, beautifully built. I don't know how much it costs, but it's just extremely nicely built. And it is all tube type. The crystal goes in here for transmit, and there's another crystal for the receiver. And let's see, there's the vibrator on the back. So it's capable of working on DC. The power transformer is most of the entire set, as you mentioned, large power transformers. And up in here is a little crystal. So that's what a CBer would have as one of the very first, if not the first sets. And to make it even better and more fun and more tempting to buy for $10, there's a complete instruction
booklet. Oh boy.
For the thing, with the operating instructions and people's notes, and a wonderfully complete circuit diagram of the set in the back. And so you can easily troubleshoot any problems with it. Very, very
nice.
Simple circuit, but also a very well-designed circuit. I was surprised to see a CB set this well built. And I don't know if I have the name of the maker here. Maybe it was on the front of the thing. What's it say on it?
Any idea, Tom, as to what year that's from?
I would say it has to be early 50s, if not before. It's a Radiophone Deluxe type CRM, whatever. Radiophone Deluxe.
Very nice.
I couldn't resist it. Absolutely. No reason at all to buy that, but I couldn't resist it. I think you all know the feeling.
Yeah. The school desk and a CB radio.
Yes.
Mr. Holly, your audio is just not working.
Yeah, I had sent a chat message to Bill that his audio was badly garbled. I don't know if it's a result of his computer or if it's like it could be something in the internet, connection, something in the line.
Yeah.
But usually Bill comes over quite well. So
yeah,
maybe if he has a question or comment, he can throw it in the chat.
I would suggest that. I had already also sent him a chat notice.
You're on the ball. You'll get yourself a job if you start hanging around and doing stuff like this with us.
Well, there were actually 4, 5, 6 people admitted after Tom started. So
excellent.
But yeah, I'm not, you make a good point about Bill, Paul. I don't know whether it's something local to his computer. I would suspect that this does not have the earmark in my mind to be a network problem, but it could be. A lot of moving parts between his voice and your ear.
That's true. It would be so much easier if he was just on radio. Anyway. Well, Tom, it's always nice for you to share some things with us, especially to try to, draw in the non-ham, or in the case of the MIT, somebody who might feel, gee, MIT, I don't know if I have a sufficient enough IQ to go to an event over at MIT, but it was very reassuring. They had some neat stuff, and the record albums alone would probably be enough to drag me over there.
Yeah, the MIT show is always fun if you're interested in scientific stuff too. There was a guy with a Tesla coil that he was demonstrating with little sparks going in all directions. And the MIT show is one of the few shows where I actually sold an Enigma machine right at the show. A professor came along and decided he had to have an Enigma machine. So I go back to MIT fairly regularly in hopes that it might happen again.
And one of the other nice things about MIT as well is it holds true for all the events, really, whether it's Brookline, radio, or, NEARfest. We show pictures of the radios and we talk about them and the equipment and the rarity and the style, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the people who come and bring the stuff, and many of them are just, more than happy to expound on how they got in the hobby, why do they collect, what do they collect, what can they do for you. If you're looking for something, never hurts to spread the word around a little bit amongst these types of folks. They're the ones who'll get back to you and say, hey, look what I found, So the networking opportunities are abundant, and it's so if you didn't bring any money and you didn't buy a thing, you could probably come home and have picked up a few things to put in the knowledge bank that you didn't know before you went in. So always a good reason to turn out and to support the event, especially sort of this post-pandemic, and the fleet at MIT had gone, and I mean, all of us remember at the Nevic shows, Steve coming by with his bundle of flyers, and he would be happy to know that they were still willing to come down and do some business down there. So very nice indeed. Well, hey, Tom, I tell you what, if you guys are willing to walk me through this, because I always seem to struggle here with sharing my screen, I'm going to try to share my screen and see if I can play you guys this little clip here. So let's see.
Well,
I enabled it, so you should be able to.
Okay, right. Paul, does your clip have audio?
It is solely audio, to be honest. Yep.
We'll see if it works, because normally you have to enable something, but go ahead and give it a try.
Let's see what we can do here.
But you are sharing your browser right now.
All right, so let's see here.
And I may be able to modify that. Let's see. Unfortunately, I can't.
All right, let's see what we can do here. Any of that coming across, Bob?
No, it's not. There's a little prep work that you have to do usually to share audio. But
yeah, so what I am trying to do here is I just have, I downloaded the audio file and I just have it up in a player, and maybe that is not something that is going to be too happy to be shared. So in any event.
Paul, if you can play it on your computer, the microphone in your computer might pick it up and broadcast it to us.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe if, I'm not sure, do you think if I took out my own headset here and then went back to try to play this for you, if that would, kind of take me out of the loop, but you guys could hear it. So
that's a poor man's but functional approach, Paul. So.
All right, so here, we'll give it a shot here. Hang on.
So just, I don't know how you're going to do this though. If your microphone is in your headset, as well as your earphones, and you pull the headset out, you'll get your audio, but you no longer have a microphone.
I see.
So you may be robbing Peter to pay Paul. And
well, here, you know what? Let's see here. Maybe I can try something else here. Bear with me here for a second. Let's see if I can just, play it through my own headset here. I have a speaker on the machine itself. So let's see what we get. And if not, we'll much ado about nothing here. I'm not going to beat the dead horse, shall we say. Let's give it another try here, see what we can come up with.
And just as an aside, Paul, I'd be happy to work with you offline so you can show it at a future meeting.
Well, what we can do too is I could just throw it probably out into the chat that we have too here. So
yeah, good idea.
Just try to back this up a little bit, and we'll try the poor man's approach.
No, unfortunately, dead air.
What about just taking the entire headset off and playing the sound through your
I don't think you guys, I don't think that was I don't think we have enough volume to do that. Anyway, stay tuned.
Hold on a second. Okay, do you went too fast. Do you see settings in the upper right?
Yes.
Click on that.
Yes, sir.
Click on audio. And turn off automatically adjust mic volume and automatically, no, you don't want to turn off the first one. I can't see that. And then go to the video to the left, see what it says there.
Enable mirror effect, always show video preview dialog.
I'm not seeing what I'm looking for, and I don't want to waste people's time. I thought
Nope,
there is
not
a
a
thing
worry.
that says allow audio to
Mhm.
be played with video in a share, and I will guide you to that at a later time, or just share the link with everybody, and
We can do that.
Yeah,
We
you're good
can
to go.
do that. Anyway, or you can just tune in. You know, they'll play this little snippet from time to time. We also have the good fortune of later in the evening on Saturday at 11, we'll be doing an hour to talk a little bit about Brookline, but also antique radio. And again, that's 10:30 a.m. We'll be on with Morgan White, who is another friend of ours who Howard donated a nice little microphone to with an engraved nameplate. So I think we're in pretty well with Morgan White. He's our pal. And again, so to get the time on pretty name brand radio station, we'll take it. So, and hopefully it brings in a few different folks to the door. Anybody else have anything recent find or anything they'd like to share, news we should know before we start thinking about winding things up here? We appreciate everybody turning out. If you're headed to K-Town, we hope you find many good things. And we certainly hope to see everybody up in Brookline. And all things working out, I will have Saturday off and be able to get up there this time. I've been remiss in my attendance at some of these recent events. So my apologies all.
John Gibbons and I are going to try to simulcast or walk around the Brookline show and broadcast it on a Zoom meeting. So we'll send out a Zoom link for those who can't get there. And hopefully you'll be able to just walk around the meet with us if it works. We're still trying to work out the technology on that.
Sounds like a plan as we continue to push the boundaries. But a fun way for those who can't come to get a look around, and or those who are thinking about coming and haven't been, maybe they get a little flavor of the event and we'll come on down. So it's a nice venue. The Pelletiers have been very kind to us over the years, and
very good breakfast sandwiches.
Yes, coffee, sandwiches. You know, it's a nice, you know, it's a fancy place, but it's also well within our wheelhouse as far as our budget. And you know, at the point in time where we've been doing it up there for a few years, they understand our vibe. So they're it's always nice to see them. Every place is so happy to see you these days. It's all about how much you put in on the check when you pay the bill, you know.
Yeah, they're
anyway,
very, very nice to us. And of course, the world-class free table is
yes,
set up.
it will be back. And the tailgating is very nice up there too. I think it lends itself to a little bit more relaxed chatting and buying and selling. And a lot of folks who don't want to have to carry everything into a hall, it's a little easier, you know, especially if things are heavy or they're just not up to, you know, doing a half an hour unload to get it in. And then, you know, heaven forbid you don't sell everything, you got to put it back out. It's nice to have that flexibility. Pop open the back of your hood there and do your selling. And if it doesn't work out, well, you don't have to carry it all back, you know, too far. So, but that's why those prices drop dramatically. Final hour sales.
This little thing that you see over my shoulder that I'm pointing to with my finger is a satellite radio that was on the free table. And it's just wonderful. I can listen to a number of different classical music stations painlessly. Don't have to worry about propagation. Although it does take some of the fun out of hunting for stations and putting up antennas.
Well, you hunt in a different way and for free, you can't beat it, you know, so we'll take them. Lots of good content out there. Well, gentlemen, I guess we'll wrap things up then. Bob, thanks again for sitting in and giving us your technical support tonight. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. Just as an adjunct, further explanation, a Zoom or WebEx or any host cannot unmute someone else's microphone. That's not possible for security reasons. If you think about it, if you had your mic off and unbeknownst to you, I was turning your microphone on in your home, that'd be pretty invasive. So you can only ask somebody to unmute. You can't unmute them. So the muting is actually, or the unmuting is in the hands of each participant in the meeting. So I thought I would just offer that to complete the explanation.
Thank you for the public service announcement brought to enlighten all of those who are not experts at this format. That's good information because we're all happy to have it, but there's still plenty to learn about executing on this platform. Thank you, Bob. Well, we'll leave you all. Have a good night, and if you're headed to Pennsylvania, good weather, good hunting, and we'll see you all in Brookline. Thanks for dropping by.
Thank you.
Ciao. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Tom, stop recording first before you
Oh,
disconnect.
thank you.
Remember?
Yes. I'll figure out how to, I see it up there. Yeah. Okay. Stop.